strategist in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq market site is Tom Shea, tax principal and digital asset tax leader at EY. Remotely, we have Anthony Caiafa. He is Chief Technology Officer and Chief Information Officer of SS&C Technologies. We're here to discuss risk management as it relates to regulation, taxes, data privacy, and cybersecurity. Gentlemen, it's great to have the both of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks, and as we can tell by the topic there certainly are a lot of synergies as it relates to risk management. As Tom, it's something that happens across the organization, across all verticals, and not something that you can operate in a silo. So from your perspective, as it relates to tax and digital assets more specifically, give us a high-level overview. What is the industry watching right now?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. If we think about the industry, there's a couple of different things, right? One, we've had a lot of significant appreciation in the market recently, right? So many clients are heading towards the end of their tax year, managing their position, thinking about that. Are they making sure they're being in compliant with IRS guidelines? There's also some significant legislation that's going to be enacted started in 2025. That includes the digital asset broker reporting, which is going to allow brokers to issue 1099s to their customers. So some changes there, some recent guidance that was released by the IRS over the last 18 months that everybody should make sure they're considering.
Yeah, they certainly should. And Anthony, you're no stranger to updates and regulations and legislature either. Data privacy and cybersecurity, it's being updated constantly. So give us an overview. What are you watching? What are clients telling you? What's keeping you up at night since you're focusing on information all day?
One of the big things for us is just adopting all of the new regulations that have been coming in, right? So one big focus for us and from our customers have been, how do we implement all of those regulations quickly and making sure that it's replicated out through all of our systems. So that's where we've been really using intelligent automation and AI to really focus on, hey, here is everything new that's coming down the pipeline. How do we apply this to all of our different, all of our different systems and all of our different policies and procedures throughout the entire environment?
Right, so Anthony, where are some of the biggest gaps that you see in IT infrastructure in the financial services space?
So, from a security perspective, I cannot stress enough that you need to have eyes on everything throughout your entire environment. So having granular observability into your environment is crucial throughout being able to manage security and being able to manage risk in your systems. So depending on the scale, there could be a lot of data that you'll be searching for, and you're just essentially looking for needles in haystacks. So again, coming back, a big thing that we have seen and that has really helped has been a lot of the intelligent automation offsetting, the being able to crawl through the data, and AI have been really helping us catch things that maybe the human worker just couldn't initially.
Yeah, how do you see emerging technologies such as AI and automation in your world, in the tax world?
Yeah, I mean, in a world where we're dealing with thousands of pages and volumes of tax code, we're certainly exploring ways for AI to enhance our ability to research cases and obviously the data element, as Anthony was referring to, particularly in the digital asset space. I mean, data is key, right? You've seen a lot of significant industry events over the last couple of years fail because they didn't have adequate books and records. And so, when you think about in the context of even just your tax function, having all of that, having all of your books and records and your documentation in place, making sure that you're following all of the appropriate guidance, I mean, there's no limit to what we can't use AI for.
Yeah, I mean, we think about the future of reporting, right? Not only are we looking to get regulatory clarity around the digital asset itself, I'm sure reporting is going to evolve along with that just because of the tax, the technology, the data component. You have to be aligned with all of that.
Well, and especially with the different methods that are available to taxpayers, I think what you're going to end up seeing is a lot of these exchanges and institutions building in the technology. So when you open up your app and you're looking to sell one of your digital assets, you're going to see, well, hey, which one are you looking to sell? Which method are you looking to apply? I mean, that's kind of the future state that we're seeing here. And there's just going to be so much information and infrastructure that's going to be required to build in that kind of basic functionality.
Right, and again, this parallels to what Anthony is talking about, not being able to operate within those silos as it relates to risk management. And cyber, Anthony, especially when it comes to data privacy and how heavily that's regulated, you need to be able to have a bird's eye view across the enterprise of where your vulnerabilities are, how you're mitigating, how you're responding. Tell us about how automation can help simplify some of the risk management that goes into that.
So it's huge. We have seen massive improvements, especially within the security space. So we have had a ton of success with automating a bunch of the different repetitive tasks that people have been doing day to day for years and years. So some of the big things is really understanding our threats. So all the response to incidents that are happening, all of the data collection for forensics on systems, governance, audit control, evidence collections, and the operations reporting have been huge. And one of the big benefits from being able to do all those things with automation is you're now getting the engineers to be able to focus on real engineering tasks. So they can focus more on the process engineering, the workflow automation. They can focus on, big things on getting reporting done better. So the automation has really helped within a lot of these environments, especially in the risk and the security space.
And of course, with all these new products that are going to market, whether it's internal or external, more data begets more data, right? Which begets more products. And by the time you're implementing them and figuring out, where does our risk lie? Just new products continue to develop. So it's almost like a game of 4D chess that you have to play, because both bad actors and good actors are leveraging many of the same technologies.
Correct. A big thing that a lot of folks really need to focus on, especially within their programs, is how do we be more proactive than reactive, especially in the current landscape, because AI has really changed the way that threats are happening within environments.
Speaking of being proactive, do you have enough clarity to be able to determine how digital assets, I mean, we don't even know how it's being identified as an asset class yet, right? So how much clarity can you have around?
Yeah. I mean, you at least have some baseline guidance from the IRS to get you started. But with how rapidly evolving this industry is, we're getting new products, we're getting new coins, new platforms every single day. A lot of the legislation just that exists today doesn't account for that. And we've seen some proposals out there, right? Some of which are industry favorable, some of which aren't. But either way, they provide clarity that taxpayers, need to kind of move on. And I think getting that clarity will provide a big step in kind of getting digital assets to their full capabilities.
Right, especially when you're leveraging decentralized platforms, right? It might not necessarily be a plug and play in terms of what the regulators are looking for. I mean, both of you work with financial services. One of the most heavily regulated industries, right? So there really is, there's very little margin of error that you're allowed for. How are digital assets being treated in their current form?
Well, the baseline view is property, but we are starting to see digital assets get pulled into into rules that apply to other asset classes, right? So for example, the broker reporting, they're being pulled into the securities broker reporting. We're seeing other proposals out there where they're getting pulled into rules that apply to commodities, apply to currencies. And so it almost kind of speaks to this broader theme that digital assets don't necessarily fit into a specific box.
Right, and that's really what the challenge is, because how can you put a tax framework around that until you understand right now, if you were to buy a digital asset, let's call it 5 years ago, you haven't received yield, it's just sitting there, it's not a taxable event until
that's correct.
It's sold. So, Anthony, again, there's just so many parallels here when you pull, the layers of the onion back when you're working with financial services. I believe you work with healthcare as well. I mean, healthcare of all industries, HIPAA is just the tip of the iceberg, but being able to be within compliance as it relates to data privacy and governance, it's not just the technical challenge that lies there as well. This is where you also have to put on your CISO hat.
Correct. Yeah. So, a big thing will also be protecting a lot of that data. So as we're doing all of the financial services transactions, we've took a lot of the concepts and the ideologies and kind of the way that we've built how we manage those transactions, and we ported that over into healthcare. So now the healthcare assets and the healthcare transactions are being treated the same exact way as financial services. So we're taking a lot of those compliance rules, a lot of those controls, a lot of those data protection things that we've done, and we're applying it there as well. So it's actually, they play very nicely together.
Yeah, they do. Are you hearing from clients that they're looking for more of managed services? So, you have experts within one group there as it relates to compliance, cyber, information security, and so forth, almost outsourcing, if you will, to managed services?
Yeah, we've seen a big uptick in a lot of the managed services and outsourcing, especially within the infrastructure space and within the security space. So a lot of our customers have been coming to us lately and asking us to either help them evolve their program, help them manage their program, and help them staff their program. So we have a bunch of different managed services offerings at SS&C that are really focused on just those things, right? How do we build better software? How do we deploy better software? How do we implement and make sure that security and risk are at top of mind? And there's just a wide array of different things that we've been doing within that space.
And speaking of advising clients, let's talk about post-election for a moment here as we're going to 2025. I mean, of course, there's uncertainty around this and what's going to be passed, what's not, how, what are clients asking you in terms of your perception as we head into 2025 as it relates to digital assets?
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly some new rumors we're hearing about very industry favorable guidance, but I think a lot of the conversations I've been having is kind of, well, we've seen a number of proposals. Which one of those might we go back and dust off now and potentially enact into legislation? And just kind of to Anthony's point on the managed services, we're seeing it a ton in our space as well around tax compliance advisory, the record keeping that we were talking about, and all of the broker reporting, just with all the data and all the issues. Lots of managed service opportunities coming our way as well.
Especially, you're advising global companies. So now throw on not only just, the multiple jurisdictions in the U.S., but when you're operating, 100 plus countries, that adds on a whole other layer.
And each country's, rules are in a different state of maturity, right? Some of them have more comprehensive frameworks built out for digital assets, others don't.
Yeah.
Right, so it's kind of flexing to those rules.
Yeah, it's almost like, Anthony, what GDPR did, right, to financial services. If you wanted to operate in Europe and have European clients, that totally upended and probably was a catalyst to a lot of the data privacy regulations that we see coming out now.
Yeah, correct. And very similar to Tom, we operate in all of the same countries. So we're constantly having to evolve every aspect of our software to make sure that we could operate within those regions.
Yeah, and when you think about 2025 and outlook, any regulatory impacts, whether it's on the tech information side or otherwise, that you're going to be keeping an eye on?
We're always looking at what's happening, especially different things that you've seen recently come out from the SEC on, from security being reported differently to boards. So that's something that, we're taking, and we're making sure that all of our processes and procedures and everything that we're doing internally and all of our escalation paths are all properly implemented. So, we don't have to have any issues with that down the line.
All right, appreciate both of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from MarketSite. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.